You're listening to Across the Pondcast. Cybersecurity rants and war stories from both sides of the Atlantic.
Hello and welcome to Across the Pondcast, a show where we talk and occasionally rant about cybersecurity topics with perspectives from both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Tib3rius. I'm joined, as always, by my age-verified co-host, Mr. Andy Swift, and we're also joined by Daniel Card, a cybersecurity consultant who is speaking to us over a public Wi-Fi network. Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, dudes.
Andy, how are you doing?
I am doing fine, Snuggle Bunny. It's not been long since I've last seen you, so it's welcome back, I guess.
Yeah, we recorded this episode a few days after DEF CON, which is either a great idea or a terrible idea.
I'm still slightly jet lagged, so I'm leaning towards terrible idea, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Awesome. Well, this episode, we're talking about the UK Online Safety Act. What is it? What chaos is it causing? And are there better solutions? We're going to find out. But before we start, this show is made possible thanks to our sponsors. If you want to sponsor an episode, please send an email to sponsors@acrossthepondcast.net for more details.
We need NordVPN coming up now, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
There'll be someone from Big VPN behind me that to shoot me in the head.
Daniel, could you record a quick segment for NordVPN?
The problem now is my VPN stance is a bit skewed, isn't it? Because the OSA has caused me personally, I think, but as a thematic sort of concept. I've been looking at like the risk of VPNs and people's usage of technology for a while, right? Which started off probably as doing some offensive work for work. Then it was into like looking at nonsense people wrote on LinkedIn. And then it was looking at what are the actual risks? Can people threat model? No. Are there any models? Generally not. They use the ideas. Can they understand risk? Risk models are more common. But like humans are really bad at risk. And I think we'd all probably agree on that.
Yep.
And so I started looking at stuff, and hence we're in my kitchen. And I was looking at like what happens when you leave your laptop on a train. And in the UK, largely nothing. Right? I've tested this. I've left my wallet in a car in Croydon with the window open before, and it's not been there. So, on a moving train at, I don't know how fast trains go. Let's just say 70 miles an hour in a small carriage. Like, who is in the train carriage with me? And if they are that dangerous, am I not already going to be like stabbed with some kind of Mission Impossible style drug that's going to knock me out and they clone my face and do some stuff, right? But yeah, like the VPN messaging is complicated now because there is the point which I have been, I say promoting, but at least discussing, which is for general use cases, TLS 1.2 plus HSDS, plus using a not ridiculous config. Right. So like if you just grab an iPhone or a modern Android phone, I can't crack my own Facebook creds in that scenario. So I wouldn't expect a bad guy to be able to do it. And if they can, good, good on them, well done. You're talking like an entire industry around the cryptography, around the browser configs, around the update management, around the device config. Like it's huge money spent on this space. But there's the idea that, you need a VPN because we need to give you something you don't get out of the box, which fundamentally doesn't make any sense to me. If that's the case, and I'm thinking back to the sort of 2000 era where we didn't have host-based firewalls on PCs, that was a big bit of a fuck up, wasn't it? We shouldn't have done that. MS Blaster and Nachi hit, and we all went, oh, that's a problem. And so we deployed firewalls everywhere. So you'd expect the industry to react, right, if this was like a major problem. But no, we need to throw. And obviously, if Nord are sponsoring, then you can kill this there. You need to spend some money with some random company and send your traffic, which supposedly isn't secure. You need to route it through someone else's server, and they won't look at it if they could, maybe. And the concept doesn't make sense, does it? If you're vulnerable because your TCP/IP connections are risky because someone's within, I'll use 40 meters because it's a practical distance for Wi-Fi hacking. Obviously, the campus can make that longer. Or a Yagi makes it to about 85 in practical testing. You look a bit weird running around with a Yagi. I got asked if I was checking for speed cameras once. I wasn't. I was definitely hacking. I was like, I'm just testing Wi-Fi signal. You get into this thing where you're like, does this make any sense? Like, what risk am I trying to prevent? Why am I spending money? Do I trust the people I'm sending my stuff through? And most people aren't equipped to do assurance on their VPN tech. The provider, the whatever web of businesses that may be supporting them, the apps that you're installing, and then maybe you're routing your certificate store with, like, there's just, how can you ask your mum to check that stuff? You can't. So on one hand, people say, stay vigilant, always use a VPN that you may be able to trust, you may not. And then we've got the OSA part, which is that I'm like, oh, now you can't even get to Wikipedia, maybe, and go to Reddit, and you can't go to self-help groups, and loads of stuff that's not porn is being blocked. Like someone's Pokemon pictures the other day, which were just normal Pokemon. They weren't anything like crazy shit. So yeah, it's now created a challenge, right? Because I love VPNs from a corporate security point of view, as in VPN technology. I think they're great if you're under an oppressive regime. Now, there's a question here about how do you get to being not in a repressive regime to being in one? Censoring stuff probably at a starting point. I'm not a historian. I'm sure there's some key things that happen from a society point of view where people start saying, like, can you snoop on your neighbors, or can you show me your ID to get into everywhere, like Wikipedia? So yeah, anyway, so it basically, it made it quite a hard conversation recently, because from my point of view, there's parts of the OSA which sound really great, protect children. It also says protect adults as well. So it's not just the children law. And it sounds lovely, doesn't it? Everyone likes to protect children. No one can even win an argument. In fact, there's no argument. If you ever go into a conversation, oh my God, if you don't agree with me, you don't like protecting children. Everyone's like, well, everyone's got to protect the children. So I'll do anything to protect children. And I've had loads of people say online, say loads, a minority, but some people, doing something is better than nothing. I'm like, what if doing something creates more risks than the harm you're trying to prevent? So all these kind of things are thrown into my VPN Wi-Fi convos, where actually you start to sit there and say, well, this is the challenge, isn't it? There's now a law that says providers must prohibit access to harm. It doesn't say porn, it says harm, I think. Again, not a lawyer, right? And you're like, well, what's harm? Is my website harmful because it teaches people how to do offensive and defensive security? Is this podcast harmful?
Sometimes. To me.
It's such a vague term. That's the weird thing.
The whole thing is
because it's so subjective. It's really subjective. And that's a problem when you're writing laws. You don't want them to be subjective.
Yeah, nail on the head.
No, and also the technicalities behind this, and we've seen this. Okay, right. It's a UK law against the global internet.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you convince your 5 other partners or 14 other partners or however many countries in the world. It's highly unlikely that the criminals in the world are going to say, there's a country over there that doesn't care about UK law. We won't set up servers there. We won't ignore this. We won't give them VPNs. We won't give them proxies. We won't do X, Y, and Z. So trying to set a law that isn't either, that probably can't be universally enforced, because I imagine one country in the world, I think it'd be more, would just be like, nah, not doing it because I don't want someone else telling me what to do. And then you look at the technicalities around this stuff. Like again, I haven't got the stuff in front of me, but like detecting someone's age via their face. I mean, if I shaved, I might look a bit younger, right? But like, essentially we're saying people that visit harmful content or adult content or whatever word we want to use, let's say adult content for a minute. If you visit some content that could be harmful to a child that you should be an adult to read, according to some people, they want you to share quite a lot of data, don't they? Like, I think my face, okay, I'm in public, so no. My face, a video of me, my name, my address, my date of birth, a copy of my passport, and a copy of my driving license. That seems like a lot of risk, given how many data breaches are there. And then you flip it around, right, and say that I'm not an adult and I'm a child, but I'm still going to try and get in. And we ask a child, and they put their data in these systems, and they're multiple systems by lots of different providers. That seems mad. Someone suggested the other day as well, tracking someone's heart rate as an indicator of whether you're an adult or not.
What?
And then GPS coordinates to make sure that you are not using a VPN and that you are, in fact, in the UK. Now that's fucking stupid because we've got GPS spoofers.
Yeah.
Not only that, but we can spoof the heart rates. Like literally anything with a computer, we can lie on it as not just hackers, as like not just the nerds. The baddies can do this too, and the goodies, reasonable, responsible, typical people can access this technology. Right? It's not like there's there might be an age limit on getting to the websites at some point, but some of the information is free, isn't it? Essentially, unless we know information wants to be free. So I just think it's a bit of a mad scenario. I think someone said, I want it to be like going into a pub and getting ID'd. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense because it isn't going into a pub. I hadn't been ID'd for a very long time. I used to go to the pub when I was probably 14, 15. Guess what we did then? Fake ID. I know it's a fucking amazing concept. So we've got all of these controls and stuff, they make sense. But you go into a pub, you show your passport, right? The CCTV is not going to be reading your passport, right? It's not CSI. So the only person that's going to see that is you, and you can hold on to it, obviously, and the person that's looking at it to say, yeah, that's you. The internet, you share your passport, and it's possibly the entire world that can see it.
Someone sees it in real life, they forget it 10 seconds later. Like they have no recollection. It's the other problem is where's data being stored? Where you're giving it to.
Yeah, and some people think that processing data is not the same as storing it, which obviously there are some technicalities and science behind this, aren't there, in terms of okay, we take a photo, does it go into memory? Yes. How long is it there for? Is there a finite amount of time period that has to pass before it's storing? But from my sort of perspective is like, if you're putting it into RAM, sending it across a networking stack into someone else's server, and they're processing it, it's going to get cached. Probably. It's going to be stored in your RAM unless it gets cleared. You probably can't control that from a browser non-app point of view. And then you've got the fact of where is it actually going and do you actually know? Because someone can tell you they don't store your data, but we all know that lots of people lie about that, right?
Yeah, as if that hasn't happened before.
And like that, I mean, the TIAT, that TIAT thing, that was nuts. Timing-wise, it was probably quite useful to prove a point, but I'd rather it wasn't because obviously ignoring the fact the app might seem a bit weird. At least I looked at the premise of that app and I was like, doesn't sound like a great thing to do outside of a room or a pub. But yet people lie. And so we're asking children and adults to give away, without any challenge, all their identity documents, and you can't just go and buy a new bloody house that quick. Oh, hello, I've just been pwned. I should have moved. It's not realistic, is it?
No, and there's also the fact that even if you could audit these systems and show that, okay, actually they aren't caching, they aren't saving data, audits are always point in time. And this is a big thing that I've been frustrated with is people like, oh, this VPN's secure. We'll go back to VPNs again. This VPN doesn't take logs, like they've published the open source, or they published the source code of their binary and everything. And it's like, okay, but that was then. Like, what is it now? Like, you can just turn on logging. It's probably a switch. And so that's another thing is like, even if you could determine that these companies aren't actually storing data, that's literally just for that exact moment in time that you did the audit. It doesn't mean anything now.
Yeah, trust me, bro, I'm not going to sell the NetFlow data. So it's not your data, it's my data. That's also a good distinction. I'm also not going to just move you onto a server that's actually rigged up to capture all the things. You've got the TLS component of this. And again, it matters, right? Like the details and everything that we do matters. But you just got no real way of knowing. And don't get me wrong, because I don't sit there going, don't use any VPNs, right? Again, I think I did a guide pretty recently saying how to do tails. Like I was like, what's the easiest way of getting yourself a VPN? It's like put Tailscale on a set-top box. You can do it on a mobile phone that isn't rooted. Put Tailscale on a VPS. That's quite an easy way to do your own VPN. But people won't do that, right? Like nerds will. But that's like sub 1% of the human population. And how can you sit there and say, are they logging? Also, question. If you're using a VPN, why do you not want anything logged? Because if someone commits a crime to you, like phishing, as an example, would you not want logs so that if you did go to law enforcement and they did do something, there was some evidence that they could get to go after the bad guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
But also no. So I find VPNs an interesting space as well, just to carry on that theme. So I found a little statistic, and you'll see this around the internet, and I don't know how true it is, because it just seems to be everywhere, like Reddit and across various other news posts and things, that there was a surge of 1,400% in VPN usage. And I think that came from Proton, is I think where the source originally came from. So best I can find out anyway. That's huge. And it feels like the whole of this kind of act was sort of pushing people almost unwillingly down these other routes of trusting things they might not have trusted before. So yes, going back to how much do you trust your VPN? Do you trust it's logging things now, in the future, yada, yada, yada. But there's also an enforcement issue at the other end of how many of these websites and things hosting content and adult material are actually going to care and pay attention. So there's a number of the big ones that have already embraced this publicly and gone, yes, we enforce this. There's a bunch that still haven't. And my concern from my point of view is a lot of people out there will just go, no, well, that one doesn't work. I'll just go to the next one. Or I'll just go to the next one. So you go so far down the tree, and as you go further and further away to people not following these rules, there's a sudden standards drop of the things that they are hosting as well. And that's a big problem when you're talking about child safety. So it's almost like the semi-safe and reasonably well-trusted places have started to enforce this, but have those ones that are hosting some pretty seriously bad content also embraced this? The answer, I think, is probably no in quite a lot of those circumstances. So you're almost pushing people down that route to go and find like more sinister things, which is a big problem. I likened it, I was talking about this with my wife the other day. And we were talking about things like abortion laws as well, because like the rhetoric was kind of similar around that as well. Because if we ban it and outright ban abortion everywhere, you're just going to force people into like really bad places to go and get this sort of stuff done, and backstreet kind of places that don't uphold sort of safety standards and regulations. I feel like this is like going down the same route. If we force people into these holes where they're using dodgy VPNs, if we force them into holes where they are using and going to websites that are, not very well supported and do tend to host quite bad content, are we just making the problem worse, is my question.
Yeah, and this is literally the question I asked was, has any risk modeling been done about not just the harm reduction of the intent, but of the harm creation or the potential harm creation of the enforcement? And you have got this thing where like, the first thing that I looked at was someone said, oh, kids are accidentally finding porn. And I was like, how do you accidentally find porn? I was like, so I tried. So I've set up loads of like test groups. I've got an iPhone with a parent, an iPhone with a kid, an Android set up mirroring that. I'm sitting there going, I don't find porn by accident when I'm browsing the internet. You have to search for it. And that is basically the response I got back from people is kids are searching for porn. And I was like, okay, how easy is it? So I went and used the lockdown child's iPhone. And to start with, I was pretty good. Safe search is enabled. You go to Google, you go to Bing, you can't get to adult content. And then I started playing more, and people like gave me ideas online. And I was like, I went to go to Yandex, and I couldn't get to Yandex, so I figured it was just the phone blocking it. But actually, it was my firewall, so it allowed egress to Russia. Yandex just lets you. It's like there is no safe browse check. There's just whatever you want. I found deltas between like iPhones and Androids with regards to like some of the browsers. I'll get this wrong probably, but DuckDuckGo does safe search checking on iPhones, but not on Android phones.
Huh.
And I was like, okay, so that's completely broken. A kid can go to Yahoo and look at porn now, regardless. And this is like a UK site, but even if it's still .com. So there's no real like capability there. And then I started looking at how do you detect safe search. There's no APIs. There's no standard support. There's no RFC that I'm aware of that says this is how we check if the phone is set to be safe content only. And then people started talking about this as well and saying, oh, we don't want people knowing if you're a child or not. So I'm not going for that. What I'm saying is if you've got safe search enabled in your browser or phone, you're not saying you're a child. You're saying that I want safe non-adult content or non-harmful content. Right. So an adult may wish to have safe search on. Yeah. And then I sit there going, well, you look at the kids' phones, and they've obviously improved this over time, because I'm sure 10 years ago, maybe there wasn't this case. But to get a child account on iCloud, I had to set up a parent account, do KYC, and tell anyone that may have lied. Then I had to set up a child account. I then had to link it to the parent account, and then I had to have a credit card. So I had to do some level of KYC just to get the kid's account. And then I was like, okay. So at that point in time, as a parent, I stamped my kid's phone stroke account and said, I want them to have a safe internet experience. And you've got control over that. And I think this is an important part. And then I was like, okay, cool. So if I'd send this, the idea I came up with, I was like, surely we could just send a safe search enabled or flagged because the devices are locked down. This isn't giving someone root access to kids' phone. And I was like, surely it should be easy to go to Yahoo, and Yahoo would be like, do you want harmful content or not before you've sent a request for it? Because Google do it, Bing do it, DuckDuckGo could go do it if you're an iPhone user. And so I was like, surely the problem that we've got, ignoring the sort of psychological and the harm and society stuff, surely the first thing, if you were like really about child safety, you'd be like, these search engines, why don't we make a law that helps them not show kids porn? Because to me, it seems odd. But to me, it was the first thing I was like, well, that's nuts. I then jumped in an app store. This is the weirdest one I found. As a 9-year-old in the Apple App Store, you can see apps that are for people older than 9 years old in the default config. And I'm like, why would you want to do that? Money, obviously, is the answer. But why would you want an app store that says, here's apps for 17 plus or whatever the age brackets are? So they're like the things that I found immediately were just like, it's really weird that we've got this position where we have put up these walls. The walls have got loads of holes in, and you can jump around them, go around them, tunnel under them, run through them, whatever you want to do, right? And yet we've got all of these other base issues we haven't touched. Gambling's not a problem, apparently. So there's all these like things that exist, are problems today. I say problems, configurations, could be another way, because whether someone this is a problem or not, it's really subjective, isn't it? Do I think a 9-year-old should be able to get to a gambling site easy? No, personally, but you might disagree. Do I think they should be using Roblox? Don't know, because that ecosystem, I just looked into this, I'm not an expert, looks very odd. And so there's all this stuff. And I'm sitting here, as you said, like, we're diverting people into VPNs, Tor, sites that are not complying, crime sites, essentially, we could probably label that space, rather than, and then when ignoring all the actual issues we've got, I think, which is like, I read one report and it was like, there's 500,000 cases in the UK ballpark. I think it was like 90% of victims know the threat. I'm like, that doesn't sound like showing your ID in front of Pornhub is going to stop dodgy Uncle Dave or whatever wankers. Like, that physical harm isn't probably going to disappear because you and I chuck a passport in front of something. But yeah, no, just I don't have to segue a little bit, but like, it's, I think we're pushing people in the wrong way. I think this is creating harm, not getting rid of it.
It's interesting. So there's a quote here from someone's name who I can't remember, but it's on the Ofcom website. So it's from Ofcom. And it's when you started speaking about things showing up on people's feeds and not being able to get to that stage yourself. So one of the first sentences they say is, our research shows that these people are not out there to find porn. It's being served up to them directly in their feeds. That's the first sentence. And I personally don't know how you get to that as well, because in any feed I have, I've never got anything like that served up to me by mistake, I would say, as an adult as well. I don't know how a child is getting to that state, whether they're getting that stuff served up to them in feeds.
So I have noticed on some of my test phones, if I go on, again, this is the brackets of age matter, I think. If I set up test phones, I've got quite a lot of phones, not clearly how many, lots. It's ridiculous. If you go on like TikTok and there's a male, again, I couldn't give you the age brackets, you get served content that's strange, but I wouldn't say it's adult. It's just a bit like massively over-suggestive and massively lots of women that are quite young wearing not a lot. But yeah, you don't just be like, oh, I'm going to go to the BBC website and oh my God, there's a dick in front of me. It's just not.
I don't know if it might be. It depends.
And Tib3rius is hacking the Wi-Fi and injecting some content.
So I think there's a big issue is that a lot of sites, and I'm a big Reddit user, and on Reddit, like subreddits can mark themselves as not suitable for work, and 99% of them are porn subreddits, but there are subreddits that deal with topics that strictly have to be not suitable for work, so they're marked that way. And the issue is, I think, not suitable for work doesn't necessarily mean not suitable for children. Like porn, clearly not suitable for children, but there are certain topics that have to mark themselves as not suitable for work. And I think because I've enabled that setting on my account, so I can actually view some of these subreddits, right? Then yeah, I definitely stumble across more porn on Reddit. And the same for Twitter. I have there's a setting on Twitter you can say, which is, okay, yeah, I'm fine. I'm an adult, whatever. Show me. Some accounts have this thing marked, right? I think marked as adult accounts or whatever, but they're not necessarily porn. And so I will occasionally a lot of porn accounts follow me as well. So it's like, this person liked your account. And it's, oh, okay, who's this? I'm like, oh, it's another porn bot. All right, great. So I think I do.
Hang on, just got to check. I'm just scrolling the feed.
So I do stumble on adult content on X and Reddit. I wouldn't say frequently, but it does happen. But that is because I have turned that setting on. So yeah, I'm okay stumbling. I don't mind. It's fine, whatever. So, but I think there's a question whether there should be more. I don't know what the word is. Whether we should separate the not suitable for work into more things and be like, okay, well, this is actually not suitable for children and not suitable for work. Maybe that might be more of a thing we do. What these sites could do, I guess, in differentiating that.
Question: what age is someone a child at? What age?
Yeah,
is watching porn okay? Now, obviously in the UK, and I'm not an expert in the laws of porn in the UK or anywhere in the world really, but in the UK it's an 18 thing, right? So you are not allowed to watch pornographic content unless you're 18. You can, 16, fuck, have a baby, join the army, pay tax. Is a 16-year-old a child? Is a 13-year-old a child? Is a sub 10-year-old a child? And at what point do we sit there and say, ignoring the law part, what part's okay or not? And I don't have to answer that because I was definitely not watching porn. I wasn't sitting there at 16 going, oh, it's illegal. I'm not going to do that.
You make a good point because whilst I was diving into statistics, one of the other ones I found that one of these sites that sort of pro all this ID stuff was throwing out there was something like 38% of, let me get this right, 13 to 21-year-olds had seen pornographic material by accident, whatever that means. But I just found that age bracket really wide and not really matching up with like legal ages for various other things we have in the UK, like you just mentioned. Like, I don't find it particularly astonishing that someone like 18 to 21 is watching porn somewhere. But that's been used as a shocking statistic, which I find kind of odd. But yeah, it's how do you define a child? Where does that cutoff become? It's an awkward conversation, isn't it?
I can speak from my own personal world. At the age of probably 13, my memory isn't that good. I'll use 13 as I think all my mates were watching porn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know anyone. I've done some surveys, right? So whenever I do online stuff, I'll always pick up the phone to people I know in real life and chat to people and ask them stuff, right? The resounding theme I get from everyone is, yeah, we all watch porn. Who cares?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's in private conversations with people. If you go online, obviously, a lot of people tend to say stuff like, someone the other day said, if you're 25 and you sleep with a 20-year-old, you're a paedophile. And I was like, I'm pretty sure, maybe not 25, I can't remember the exact ages, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of 25-year-old lads probably have slept with a 21-year-old. Maybe, I don't know, not everyone. But like, it's really weird because we can't, this conversation, like not our specific one, but these themes are really hard because people they start throwing weird labels and stuff out. And you're like, look, like no one wants a minor to be abused. No one's suggesting anything like that. Loads of the stuff that like the industry and people like us on the call probably, but like we help people not get hit by bad guys in a million different ways. But it becomes hard this time, doesn't it? Because it's what's the law in the UK is 18. Do I think that's sensible given the 16-year-old what you can do? No, I think that's insane. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. But it is the law. So the law says 18. But it's really weird, isn't it? We've got laws that I think don't make sense. Probably not the only person. We've got these weird enforcement things teaching everyone to get fished and have identity theft and potentially extorted or worse, right? Because if you hand over your ID, someone supposedly just did this, you get fished. Please give us your ID. Give us your ID. Oh, we're now going to show you some dodgy content. Now I'm going to extort you.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult, this space, society-wise, conversation-wise, legally, and then the technical aspect of it's ridiculous because unless we ban HTTP, you can bypass everything.
Yeah, I think you've got to assume that kids are going to find a way around anything one way or another, one way, shape or form. There's always going to be a minority that will. And it's, I think Ofcom accept that as well in the way that they're trying to enforce this. Because they've publicly sort of said it's not, we're not trying to stop the dedicated teenagers who want to actually, who want to find it eventually. They're always going to find a way through, and it's just accepting that, which I know feels like it defeats a lot of the point.
The easy way to find this stuff is to take the route into the nasty space.
Yeah.
But and that's the bit that doesn't make any sense. It's like,
that's what we mentioned earlier.
We've left defaults that are frankly useless. We've put controls which are frankly broken. And then we've said, but if they're really determined, it's okay. And you're like, but we've just made everyone go into this strange funnel. Like, we put a dam in front of the river. The river's now going off towards like the scummy place of the internet. And then we're saying, but it's okay. Like, it's a really weird thing. And we've taught everyone to get fish. Ignoring, like I said at the beginning, my whole, should people use a VPN in the UK? Probably is now my message. Do they need to do it because someone's going to hack them on public Wi-Fi? Absolutely not. Do you want logs if crime are committed and you want some help? Yes. Why everyone doesn't want logs? It's a weird one, isn't it? Unless you're committing crime, why would anyone want no logs?
I think that's the reason. I think the thing is, with VPNs, a lot of people will be like, yeah, I want VPNs so I can watch Netflix shows that aren't in my country. But in reality, it's like, yeah, I want to do something weird.
Yeah, I want to buy some weed or whatever, or worse.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is weird. The Netflix one's funny. I haven't gone around testing them all. But every time I've used a commercial VPN to watch any paid-for service, the paid-for service has told me very quickly to get fucked, and I want a VPN, and that it's not going to show me anything. Now, obviously, with some rudimentary networking and computer skills, you can be like, oh, cool, I'm going to drop a pie in a building, dial into that, or I'm going to get my mate to do that for me, or I'm going to get a VPN. There's a million things you can do, right? But you can also, the funny one, I hadn't seen these for years. Do you guys remember when we were younger, or at least when I was younger, the browsers that you typed in a URL and it bypassed your content filter? They still exist.
Yeah.
Not only that, you've got really cool upgrades. You've got Docker containers that run a virtual browser completely, and you can access it via your browser. So you can do the Yodel, I put a browser in your browser shit, and you can do that like an infinite number of times, can't you? Subject to resources. So the technical space in this, it baffles me that, and this is an assumption, the people that think this is a great idea, and we all think protecting children is a good idea, but the people that really think this, giving your passport to anyone that asks for it on the internet, is a good idea. I don't understand if they understand the technology, because if they did, they'd probably say what I say, which is this is broken as a concept. I don't understand if they understand that asking children to give out their GPS data is a terrible idea. I got some initial flack off my idea, right? So my really quick idea was, okay, to set up a child account, you have to go through KYC, you have to set it up with Android or Apple, right? So Google or Apple. So you've got to set it up in a certain way. And at that point, your device is probably in a semi-lockdown state, and you can have some parental control over a state of safe browse enforced on off. And we've said before, there's not an API, there's not a universal way of detecting that. In fact, I think it's an absolute nightmare to detect, hence I think some people don't bother, but also I think money is the other reason. I was like, okay, look, if we sent a header that just said, can you have safe browsing, please? I was like, it's the most simple technical change. It's a few library updates. I'm obviously oversimplifying the technical part, and then it's a case of sites saying, if I see this header, don't show the adult stuff. And people said, oh, now you can use that to track kids. I was like, what? We're sending GPS coordinates, passports, names, date of births, pictures of the kids' faces. That's not tracking them. But my header, which is generic and safe. And I get it. I think I didn't put this out as an RFC or any sort of like white paper. It was just sort of, but I'm sitting there going like, we do this already. If you go to Google, I haven't got the phone, it's in another room. If I get the kids' phone now, and we go to Google and I type porn and get anything, it says safe browse is enforced. So we kind of do this already. We just don't do it universally. And the only reason I can think we don't is because of money.
I can't think of any reason.
Yeah.
20%. Let's say 20% of the internet traffic is kids. In fact, I saw this, could be completely unrelated. I think it's OpenAI released the number of tokens consumed per day or whatever. And school holidays, the level of OpenAI usage appears to drop. Don't quote me on this, go and check the stuff, right? But I can only think that this is not done because of money. Because if you said to your app store, let's say this, if you're selling an app store as a basis, I've got 1 million customers, and then so to attract people into your app store to generate you revenue. And then you say, actually, I've only got 20% less than that. Because I think, and this, don't quote me, you can look it up probably because you're pretty stealthy at the whole checking stats. Like, how much of the human population on the internet is kids? And if you start not showing them adult apps, if you start not showing them adult content, if you start not showing them adult advertisements, and I mean that from a range of stuff, from the gambling in games, adult content. Pretty sure gambling should be adult content, but strange world we live in. I think it's that. I think there's a huge, massive incentive for everyone to say, think of the children over here, and then not actually do the things that would help the children.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Boom.
I mean, it's the same kind of thing. It's not a meme. It's a cliche. There are like two main things you can like pass laws, like pass bad laws with like public support, and it's like terrorism and child safety, and it's really just those two. If you can phrase something as in think of the children, you'll usually get large public support initially, at least, until people realize, oh my god, it's such a dumb idea. And the same with terrorism. If you're like, the country's at threat, we need to pass this law, even though it's violating privacy or whatever, initially a lot of people will be for it. And yeah, that's really, I think, the crux of the matter is it's almost like in the US, they had the satanic panic in, I think, the 90s, with a lot of like metal and rock music and satanic imagery and stuff like that. And it was like, but a lot of it was just BS. It didn't actually exist. And this is like completely over the top crazy. And it's probably the same thing here. You know, I don't think it is that easy to find pornography online. And the thing is, like, this isn't necessarily a new thing. If we were if the internet didn't exist, like I heard so many stories from some of my older friends about, I found my dad's stash of porn mags when I was a kid. You know, I feel like anyone like probably over the age of 40 or 50 probably found at some point stash of porn magazines that their dad had.
I mean, it's not just that. You used to be able to buy it from news, you probably still can.
Right,
you can buy videos from news agents. You can buy magazines. Kids used to swap these at school.
Yeah.
You could buy and sell porn at school. So like you say, it's not new, is it?
No. And I think the only difference is scale. But that you could say that about anything to do with the internet. Like that's the thing. You can find anything. You can find more of anything else on the internet than you ever could. And that's just because everything's connected now. So the problem existed back then too. It's just now it exists at a larger scale. And then the debate is scale important? Does that matter? So it's an interesting question. And I don't know if there's an elegant solution to it.
No, I do think our current solution to it has jumped a few steps ahead, maybe.
Yeah.
We've sort of gone from like, oh no, let's just not do all the easy solutions or the things that might sort this without people uploading all their private data somewhere, to straight to like maximum DEFCON, which is like you've just taken a hammer to it. Really, it doesn't seem very elegant or well thought through. It doesn't seem like we've tried other things to get to this state that are less intrusive. It just seems like we've gone for the most ill thought through position we possibly can and implemented that in law overnight, which just it feels kind of messed up. The other thing I wanted to say is I think perhaps we are also underestimating kids quite a lot in some of this situation as well. In like just some of the wording is just we want to stop the volume of people like stumbling across this, or we want to keep it to like the 5% of people that really go out there and search for it. I'm like, yeah, cool, but kids are like learning to program in primary school now. Like, we're in different worlds to the one we were even 10 years ago. Like, to think that kids of the future, even like in 10 years' time, are not going to just be able to trivially bypass this stuff without even blinking is utterly ridiculous. And at that point, what do we do? Do we get even more heavy-handed at that stage? Or where does it go from here? My fear is that we're on this kind of slippery, intrusive slope that will, over time, allow even more and more government oversight into, well, just about everything. That's my kind of fear at the moment, I suppose. Yeah, it's a nice morbid point to...
I think that's a really good point about the whole in 10 years' time question, right? So I haven't been thinking about that. I've been thinking like what's happening now. It's trivial to bypass. It's not even trivial. It's the wrong word to use. You can pick up any phone, even if it's got kids safe search enforced, and you can get access to porn with one search.
Yeah.
So it's one URL, one search. You got whatever you want anyway. And this technically would mean the only way to stop this happening would be to ban the internet. And the second point about the underestimating kids, and this is the bit I said earlier, it's really hard to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have been told repeatedly by parents that their kids are not stumbling across this, they are actively pursuing this, right? And so you sit there going, okay, they're actively pursuing stuff, right? And you can do stuff as a parent to try and limit this, right? So like you can absolutely lock down the phone, you can not authorize certain apps. Oh, really weird apps. By the way, guys, I had to get this in. I found an app that makes your mobile phone vibrate permanently. It's advertised
Okay.
as 4+ as the age bracket, and they're advertised as massagers. And I'm sitting there going, fuck, like, hang on, if you're an adult in the UK now, if you go to Pornhub, you need to provide your face, a video, your ID, whatever it is. I haven't actually tested this, and other than seeing the prop. You've got to chuck over all your data. But if you have a gift voucher, I'm assuming there's no free ones. I haven't checked that much. I got a bit weirded out with the concept. You can go and turn the phone into a vibrator through the App Store. At least that's my assumption, right? That I do not think these are massage your back apps. And then you've got that was weirding me out. I was like, how can we not be addressing these really in your face, obvious things? And then, you said about the 10 years. A thing I did think about was, like that recent grok, you can go and get AI girlfriends. And there's all these weird, I say weird, there's all these, I'll use the word weird, fuck it, because to me, they're weird. There's all these apps where you can go and have a girlfriend experience through AI, and they all look like they're just like hiding sex apps in this way. And again, it's like you said about the scale. We used to have radio. I mean, I am fucking over 40, so I can talk about some pre-internet times, right? I didn't go on any porn radio, but I bet it existed. I bet that people were broadcasting over the airways porn. I bet people may have been doing stenography that way. There's probably, and if you think about the internet, it was largely founded by porn, wasn't it? So like adult entertainment is a huge bit of money for the world. It's challenging. I just think it's really odd. Like I said, there is this weird thing about there's all the stuff that seemed really obvious that could be tackled that I believe isn't because of money. And then, as Tib3rius said, think of the children. Here's a ridiculous law. And it's not ridiculous in intent, I don't believe. I don't believe it was malicious in intent. I don't believe any weird, crazy shit about that. I think people honestly sat there and said, I want to help the children. And then I think people said that won't work. And they said, la, 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 la. Yeah. And that's how we got to now. And how we navigate this is mad.
And the problem, I think, especially with the language, like if it's focusing on that harm thing rather than actual just sex content, then that does open up for future, right? The opportunity for the government to step in and say, okay, well now this content is something we determine is harmful. Like the problem with all of these laws that sort of restrict stuff is who gets to decide what stuff is restricted, I think. And that's where it just becomes a little, I don't want to say conspiratorial, but a little dangerous maybe. From like a censorship standpoint, is do we actually trust the government to accurately determine what the heck harm means?
Do you trust them in 20 years?
Well, this is
the bit I've been talking about for loads of stuff as well. I was talking about the attempt, which is, I guess, partially successful, the UK government to disable advanced data protection. And this goes into the same thing of, okay, is the government in the UK today bad? I would say no. But could it be in 20 years' time? Absolutely. And the stuff we use to protect ourselves is encryption. And it's, I say freedom of speech, that's probably the wrong term to use, but it's the diversity of thought, speech, and the freedom to express ourselves, obviously not without the fear of any consequence, because everywhere that says they've got freedom of speech, you have, but it won't stop someone punching you in the face or arresting you, depending on what you say, right? And I think it is. There are some, I mean, I started looking at this, guys, because I looked at it and I was like, technically this won't work. And then I was like, I'd already said it wouldn't work before. I was like, well, surely this is, I don't really care about the porn bit. I was like, there's loads of stuff here that has potential societal harm today and tomorrow. And I was like, okay, well, let's have a quick look. Let's see what this looks like. And yes, let's use the porn thing as people will be interested. Because shockingly, lots of people like to watch porn. Otherwise, it wouldn't be I don't know what the industry side is, but I'm assuming $1 billion,
It's huge.
or billions of dollar industry, right? Maybe it's worth looking at the stat. How much porn is there in the world and cat pictures versus the rest of content on the internet? Because it's probably a huge chunk of money, content. We all look at web, I say we all look. I am in my work. I have looked at a lot of log files. I've looked at a lot of systems. What would surprise me is finding something like a C2 connection. What wouldn't surprise me is finding porn.
Yeah. So I have just looked those statistics up.
I like this. It's cool.
And I was asked to put my age verification ID now. But it's estimated over 4% or more of websites are pornography, and the estimated revenue is believed to be, it doesn't seem to be an exact figure, but it's estimated to be around about in the tens of billions of dollars annually. So huge.
Yeah. But 4% is quite a small number.
That feels small. There's just a top result on Google, so I don't know. I haven't delved down too much.
Maybe it's a question that we can go off and look at, right? Or other people can go and look into, because there are, again, this is the question. It's like, when is someone a child? Is watching porn okay? Yeah. Is it okay for a child to watch porn? I think that's up to a parent to decide. And obviously to be considerate of the law. The law in different countries is probably different. It's such a weird thing, isn't it? I haven't got a particularly strong view on it, other than I think parents should absolutely talk to their kids, educate themselves, do what they need to do to give them a safe environment to operate in within the constraints of that, right? We've got to, I think as an industry, we should be making it far easier to make safer spaces.
It's like, it reminds me of in the US, and this happened like maybe a decade or more ago, probably was more. There was a huge, I wouldn't say huge, there was a big public backlash against sex education in schools.
Mm.
The rationale was, if you teach kids about sex, even if it's teaching them about safe sex, they'll want to have sex. And so there were quite a few states who reduced or either completely banned sex education in schools. And of course, what happened was the number of child pregnancies went up. Because kids are going to have, like, I'm sorry, but like, if you're a teenager, you're going to have sex. Like that, you don't need to be educated. It's a natural human process.
Mm.
But
we only exist here because of it, right? Yeah, it's weird that.
So it's not
people having sex.
It's just crazy because it's one of those things where like the rationale kind of makes sense initially until you actually think about it. Like, it's one of those things, well, why would we be teaching about sex in schools? If you teach about sex to children, children will know about sex, and that kind of makes sense until you like think a little bit deeper about it. And I feel like we got the same problem here. The argument, like, if we put an age verification, then kids can't get to porn because they can't verify themselves. And it's like, yeah, but the kids are probably going to try and get to porn anyway. And they're going to try and get around that. And so it's not really doing anything. And yeah, ultimately, I think it just causes way more harm, or it will cause way more harm, I should say, than it's going to prevent. Just exactly like getting rid of sex education caused way more child pregnancies than it could have prevented. Because ultimately, they didn't know about condoms. If they'd have used condoms, there wouldn't have been as many child pregnancies. It's just
He's
literally a
not
fact.
saying use a VPN, just to throw that out there. The VPN is not an internet condom. Just
NordVPN, internet condom.
There you go, Nord. We got some new branding for you if you want to sponsor the podcast. Education is such an important part of this because, if you, as you've just said, if you don't educate people on how to do something safely, they will just do it badly. And that's a fact of life, and it goes any walk of life in anything. So, like, my son, when he's 5 now. When he was smaller, in our house, we've got things like open fires. And this is where I might annoy some parents, but please others maybe. But we have open fires in our house because we've got an old as hell building. And it's like, our approach to educating him about those was like, we could go down a route of, let's get these big fire guards and let's keep him away from it forever and box him away and not let him touch or know how to handle or do. Or we could take the other approach of teaching him that fire hot, don't go anywhere near this. This is how you respect fire. This is how you stay away from it. And then he comes away with that sort of pre-built knowledge then that that's how I handle something. That's how I need to respect that. That's something I don't go near or I don't touch without mum and dad present, sort of thing. And that was our approach to this whole situation. Rather than just locking things away, we'll give him access to things, but we'll educate him on how to do things safely and properly and respectfully. And I feel like this is quite a similar situation. Like if you don't teach children about it anyway, and we're not saying that like in primary school we should teach them all of the birds and the bees talk and tell them absolutely everything, but it's more about teaching them respect and how to handle things properly. So when they do get to that age, when they do become more inquisitive about these things, they have a natural respect and boundary built into them rather than just letting them go wild. So I think education, this whole thing, plays an absolutely huge part of it, a part of this whole piece, because, going back to the in the 10 years thing, we don't know what the government's going to be like in 10 years' time. We don't know who's going to be running the country in 10 years' time. We don't know how it's all going to change. We don't know how kids are going to grow up and be bypassing stuff and have access to things. We don't know how that's going to pan out, whether these measures are going to be effective. And at that point, what do? We've got to fall back to something. And that something has to be a good foundation of education, respect for themselves and other people, I think.
Yeah.
There's a cybersecurity talk in here because what do I say to people? Defaults, strong configs, and educating people. And that can get lost, can't it? The education thing in terms of like general awareness. So I'm aware of something, but it doesn't really help me defend against the nation state, does it?
No.
I know they exist. But I think you're absolutely right. It's like we live in a world that it's based around risk and opportunity. And not all risk is bad. And not all, the word harm is really interesting, isn't it? I stub my toe quite a lot. I run around barefoot. I sometimes get distracted, and I'm like, it teaches me sometimes I should put some shoes on, and sometimes I do. There is a learning process around life, and I'm not a psychologist, but again, the only thing I can come back with is like, a lot of people have told me it's not accidental, it's hunting, it's finding it. So you've got this whole, and it's, loads of time is spent on the porn conversation, but that isn't the whole thing, is it? That the Wikipedia are potentially having to put this. An encyclopedia requires you to prove that you are over 18, read probably some historical documents or whatever. And I think that's important to sort of remember as well, that this is not just about porn, because it's really easy for some people to say porn's bad. My personal view, I'm like, if it's safe, consensual, legal, and it's an adult entertainment business, isn't it? But like blocking help groups. Can you imagine if you had like a self-harm group for teenagers and now they can't get to it, and what that could do to the teenager not having a support group or being asked to show their bloody passport or their face even. The number of scenarios that I can think of where this is bad is huge. And the amount of effort it takes to bypass all of the potential the existing controls and the potential controls that people suggest is seconds. So all I have really come away with is going, yes, theme, noble, maybe, execution of it, broken, actuality and practicality of doing something that works for there's 70 odd million people in the UK. And how do you set a set of rules that say, oh, by the way, your children must behave like this? And I think that's an impossible task as well. So I think it's really complex, and I still am flabbergasted that the number of things that you can do, ignoring porn, you can go on as a kid and start trading outfits in games and selling in market spaces, not money, but in game money. I sit there going like, hang on, there is like, and I looked and I was like, there is a lot of, I would say probably crime underneath the surface of a load of stuff. So all of that stuff is getting completely overshadowed by the porn conversation. And actually, like I said, I put this on LinkedIn quite early on. I said, look, like, I don't think porn's the issue. Yes, there are some issues with it. I don't think those issues actually will go by putting broken fences in front of them. But actually, I think there's so much more other area that's actually, this is a problem. And there's problems not only with the, my thing about gambling. I was just like, how could you be looking at gambling stuff and that be okay? But also there's just like, I think, not an expert in this space, but it looks like the range of harm to children that exists under the surface of lots of platforms is massive and far probably, again, assumption, but probably far greater than them seeing a clip of porn on the internet by mistake randomly, where we think that probability is low anyway.
Yeah, well, but if you accidentally see a clip on a reel or something like that, it lasts like seconds maybe. But the span of some of these other things, like your game example is quite a good one. I mean, there's stuff built into games now. There's, borderline gambling, trading, et cetera, and you can be exposed for that for months and months before anyone catches on to it. So there is a whole ecosystem of stuff underneath that people are perhaps exposed to for longer periods of time as well. So
it's almost like slave labor, right? So like you can go and become a developer in a market space as a child and never get paid, but you might be told that you could get paid. It's like this. I'm not shocked because I knew about it, but like obviously my focus is not in that space generally. And I sit there going like, I think it's okay to run around screaming, think of the children and not tackle the things that look like, after really quick research, going, hang on a minute, the app stores don't make sense, the ecosystems don't make sense, the social media, I use that word, the social stroke game areas don't make sense if we just ignore the harm. It's okay because 2 developers out of 20 million of them made some money, and therefore it's okay what happens in that space. It's really odd. Again, my assumption around most of this is there's a lot of money, and that's why people aren't taking action. Or maybe that's wrong. Why would you not go and tackle some of these things rather than tackling what we have done? And that's the bit I just cannot in my head. And it feels like someone is obsessed with, is it porn? I don't know. Like, was that really the worst thing in our society that we needed to go after while ignoring all the other stuff?
My worry as well is that some parents, and it probably isn't all parents, but some parents will use this as and just assume that kids aren't able to access porn. They'll be like, the law's in place, the checks are there, kids can't access porn, so they don't have to have a conversation about it. If there's anything on the internet that parents should be having conversations with their kids about at some point, I'm not saying it needs to be at like 9 or whatever. I'm not even going to put an age on it. There's an age though. At some point, you have to have a conversation with your kids about pornography. If only, and honestly, I'm specifically with boys, to explain and teach that it's not real, that it's completely unrealistic, and that you shouldn't treat women like that, right? Because I feel like there is an underlying, and we could have a whole other podcast that's like not even related to cybersecurity about this topic, but there is a very, I want to say, misogynistic angle to a lot of pornography that I think is probably going to develop unhealthy sexual proclivities in boys. And that's something that, and I think you can have a healthy relationship with pornography, but I think you have to understand that it's fantasy, it's not realistic, and okay.
You can go again. Can you go as a kid today in the UK and go and read about Andrew Tate?
Yeah.
Yes, but you can't go and watch. I say as a kid, that's again wording everyone. Don't pitchforks out for me. Like, I'm talking as a young adult, probably is the right word to use, right? If you're 16 years old, you can go and look at stuff from Andrew Tate, but you cannot go on Pornhub. That to me doesn't make any sense. This, and going back to the, if we don't, I don't know, there are societal things that are not necessarily a problem, and there are some things that are problems, right? And it's a really hard space to talk about. But yeah, we need to teach people to do the right thing. We need to teach people morals. We need to teach people, like when we teach people ethical hacking. I hate that phrase, hacking. Get rid of the ethical bit. And I know what I'm going to do. Everyone's like, I'm an ethical hacker. I'm like, I have granola while I'm fucking your system up. And you need to teach people to treat things with respect, to treat people with respect, to operate within the laws. And this is, I don't think, and this is where everyone gets all like emotional and heated about all these conversations, right? If you sat there and said, do you want to come and talk about this on a podcast? In the cold light of day, I'd say no. Because it's grief, isn't it? But just because it's grief doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It's a bit like just because computer systems, people say they're secure, it doesn't mean we should just trust people on it. But when we teach people how to break into systems and to test the systems and do assurance, we are teaching them, firstly, to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And then we're teaching them to hack the planet so that we can make the planet safe. So, I think that's important. And I just think there's a huge chunk of social conversation and societal issues that are being completely ignored. But it's okay. We've banned some porn sites that are abiding by the law unless you do a 2-second bypass or if you go somewhere worse. And the worst, I've asked for this loads, like online, and shouted it into the void. Where is the modeling? The harms that we can see that are already materializing. So where the theoretical modeling about imposing laws. I mean, it was really interesting, the stat you gave about the whole teenage pregnancy thing. I'm sure there's loads of cause and effect type work and historical fact data and studies that could have been looked at and said, does putting barriers in things always work? The prohibition in America, right? Got to get a tea conversation in here. Did everyone suddenly stop drinking alcohol? No. So, and banning stuff, again, there are some things, again, the lines of stuff get really complicated, don't they? Did the Jolly Roger cookbook get banned at one point as being like a terrorist document or something? Can't remember. Anyway, it's a really hard space, isn't it? It's like, does my blog about using, my most popular blog at one point, and probably still is how to brute force with Hydra. It may have helped enable some defenders. It may have helped enable some attackers. Do we need to put age verification on that? Will a criminal with intent, motivation, skills, capability, get to my blog post and where it says, please show me your ID, go, oh, no, it's good. I am now going to become a saint. I am not going to just steal someone's ID and break in and get the data, and I think that's the problem, isn't it? If you look at everything with rose-tinted glasses, every idea is great, isn't it? As long as you say, this idea is to deliver some meaningful thing, like help the children.
Yeah.
And then you ignore any realities of life afterwards because criminals break the law. Kids innovate. Humans innovate. And getting the right balance of stuff in life is difficult. It's difficult I would say it's difficult in a house.
Absolutely.
Let alone a town or a city or a county or a country or a collection of countries. And then globally, I always sat there and said years ago, I was like, teams of 7, right? Teams of 7 people can operate quite effectively because you can have someone at least be the arbiter of decision making, and then disagreements can be managed sensibly. Beyond 7 people in a group, getting people to agree on everything is basically impossible, in my experience, right? So it's like globally saying to everyone, what should the rules be is a difficult question, especially for something around essentially the potential censorship of help, support, information, good and bad content.
I really hope one day that we do get some, and I hope someone's collecting this, starting now, statistics on things like the impact this is having as well coming out. I hope we have a measure in 5 years' time to go, yeah, this is working, or we have some information about the negative impact it's having. Because I've got a feeling all the statistics we will see will just show positives, and no one will be looking into the negatives of implementing this the way we have. But I really hope we do see something along those lines, and I hope it leads to a decent review of it, because I do think there is a better way of doing this. Full stop, really.
I don't think the intent behind this as a theme is terrible at all. I do think that there are loads of things we could have done, we haven't, or can't work out what reasons. And I do think this stuff needs to be reviewed anyway. We always have to review things in life, right? If we set a company policy, we don't say, that's it, mate. If we have a new customer come in with lots of money, what happens? The policy gets changed. They say we need to have MFA. MFA gets rolled out really quick when you've got a contract with someone who's going to come and audit you.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, the review of this stuff.
I don't think it's going to last, honestly. I think with the amount of public backlash about it, I could see it just completely being overturned within a year, but I'm probably wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's being used as a bit of a political pawn over here, isn't it, by various parties who I won't reference because I don't want this whole thing to become political. There are political parties out there just going, we'll ban it. We get into battle, we'll ban it. And that could be potentially quite dangerous as well. Who knows? Depending on which parties decide to do that or not. But yeah.
Yeah, that could be a massive own goal, couldn't it? If this is weaponized there's just so much to this. I find it odd because this didn't require any thinking. Like, as in the testing I did, I think it took me 2 days and 15 minutes. The 15 minutes, I was like, what I'd actually do is probably do this. These things here, quick. I say quick, obviously quick in terms of societal change is not fast, but changing some HTTP headers, changing some App Store stuff, getting people to agree on a certain way to check for a massive category of config, and not just children. So that seems pretty sensible. I don't understand how no one looked at this and went, you can bypass it a billion ways. In fact, I can't think of any way to come up with a limit on the number of bypasses. It's infinitely bypassable based on the way the internet works. Or statement, obviously. Don't mean just the routers. And so to me, I'm a bit dumbfounded. It's been said for years. People have advised people on this. And it's not that anyone wants to, like a kickback I got from someone. They were like, you're not doing anything to solve the problem. I was like, seriously, like I've just spent a couple of days testing and here's some stuff that would make kids safer. And it took me 15 minutes of thinking to be like, yeah, if we did that, if we did a flag, hell, you could do it in the user agent for all it matters. If you did a flag that said, I want you as a site to know that I've got safe browse enabled. Yes, okay, all the service operators need to do some code changes, but that can be done in libraries largely. I was like, surely this is really easy to solve technically, and obviously complicated from a implementation and society and law point of view. There are things that we could do as society to help children.
Yeah, and they've had to make the code changes anyway, right? That's the thing. Like they've had to implement the age verification code, so it's not like we're asking. There were always going to be code changes.
That's a really good point.
So, and honestly, the age verification checks, the code for that is probably way more complicated than just checking a header and seeing, okay, well, now we don't display adult content. I think that's a much easier solution.
There's a cost to it as well, isn't there? That's the other thing with the age verification stuff. Like it's almost like if you had an easier, cheaper option, but it just involves checking headers or agents, that doesn't really cost anything to implement. Implementing a whole age verification check process with a third-party checking company, it's another added overhead. But some of these places don't. And if you made it an easier barrier to entry, maybe you'd find more of a dodgy place to actually implement it. Maybe not. I don't know. Could be speculation.
But yeah, I mean that's like the small groups that Daniel was talking about that they can't implement this because it's not cost effective. Like it costs money to do these age verification checks. It doesn't make any financial sense for them to do that. It makes more financial sense for them to close their group than it does to implement a stupid age verification check that is going to be costly for them. Because often a lot of these groups are just free groups, and the whole kind of point of them being online is it's relatively cheap to create a website. Like you can create a website almost for free. If, domain costs, hosting costs minimal, it's very cheap. But what isn't cheap is using a third-party age verification system, because you don't know how many people are going to have to use that, and they're probably going to charge either a monthly fee or per request, right? And either way, I think it's probably going to be expensive.
And lawyers aren't cheap. So if you do get someone challenge you, that's a massive problem, potentially. I was also saying, there is a funny hack that I came up with. What if someone built an age verification system that just looked like it worked? How would anyone be able to actually test if this works, because they can't. Like legally, if we think about the way organizations work, I could build a quick site, not to say I'm going to do this, but wouldn't it be funny if I built something that someone could do an API request and it said scanning your face, checking your ID, checking the database. And actually all it did is just echo shit to the screen and then say, yeah, you're good to go. It could just use a random 50-50, like roll of the dice type generation to be like, yeah, you're old enough. You look pretty good. And how would anyone be able to check that? And if you did have it checked, you'd just be like, oh, the bug in the code. Or you'd just shut the service down, wouldn't you? Be like, oh, the folding, mate. Suddenly, our primary developer and our key investor has left. So unfortunately, though we would love to continue business, I'm out.
Yeah. And you can guarantee that company won't be set up in the UK, so the UK government won't be able to do anything about them anyway. So, yeah, no, that's a really good point.
Red teaming. This stuff needed red teaming, and I don't mean I'm not trying to spark a red team or an OST style debate on the internet. These ideas need red teaming, and the red teaming results need to be there. And my idea about headers isn't a great idea. I just think it's a little bit of a better idea than the other shit ideas. And how it's done, ignoring the I don't think it's too much to ask, but I can see why people aren't doing it, money. Why are we showing kids adult content in app stores? Why are we giving them search engine results from major companies? So we're not talking about Yak's search engine is just spun up in Russia for anyone to use and abuse. We're talking about, I think it was DuckDuckGo and Yahoo. And I was just like, how can you search for porn on Yahoo and get the content? I'm lots of words. I mean, I was laughing because when I started doing the testing on Google and Bing, and even on my iPhone on DuckDuckGo, I was like, oh, this seems pretty good. And then the more I spoke to people, they were like, oh, Dan, try this one. And obviously, I then set up the Android phone. I was like dual wielding all the cybers, right? And I was like, oh, this is terrible. I was like, I was laughing because I think it's funny because we all know that technically all this stuff can be bypassed. But I was like, even without, we didn't need to do any proxies. We didn't need to use VPNs. We didn't need to do any browser in the browsers. We didn't need to do like iframes, or we didn't need to do guacamole access to a VM. We didn't need to do Citrix servers. We didn't need to do every bit of tech that corporates use to give remote access and capability. All we needed to do is to go to Yahoo or go on an Android phone. I'm like, I don't know what the general makeup is. I know from traveling around, like in Spain, there's loads more Android phones, I think, based on my wireless enumerations. But basically, we sat there and said, if you go with the cheapest option, which is probably the most sensible thing to do if you're a child, for a young child's phone, you want to buy them something cheap because they'll probably smash it, break it, or whatever. If you go with that, then all you got to do is DuckDuckGo, Yahoo, Yandex. I can't remember who else. And then you're in. You don't need to show you any ID. And I'm not flabbergasted at that bit. I'm flabbergasted at the fact that the immediate thing is running around enumerating porn sites that don't do it and then creating a list that's public record. That was funny. There is a list from the regulator of all the sites that don't check, and it's public. So if you're a child, you can go and look at that list.
Oh, God.
And now you've got
Of course they did it. Yeah.
Nice one.
And again, that's not a dig at them. It's a process thing, isn't it? This has not been red teamed. There you go. That's mine.
No, I like that ending there. This has not been red teamed. That's just the underline of everything. That's it. Like, it's not been thought through. It's not been red teamed. They haven't really future proofed it in any sort of way. And they've jumped from what could be a very simple fix through to the most complicated, convoluted way of doing it that doesn't really work. It's completely broken. That's my finishing statement, I think. And education rules.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. Please let our listeners know where to find and follow you online.
Cool. You'll find me on UK_Daniel Card on Twitter. If you can find me on LinkedIn, you're welcome to send me a connection request. LinkedIn's hell. But so I'm mainly on Twitter. Please don't put anything weird in my website contact forms either. Thanks.
Well, thank you for listening. I've been Tib3rius. He's been Andy Swift. We've been joined by Daniel Card. This has been Across the Pondcast. You can find all of our social media links in the episode description or on acrossthepondcast.net. And we will see you next time.
See you later, peeps. Bye-bye.